The morning sun of Vorthok Prime cast long shadows across the Galactic Strategic Academy. Students from dozens of worlds walked through the tall metal doors, their different shapes and colors making the hallway look like a living rainbow. Professor Thander stood at the front of Lecture Hall 7. His blue crystal skin caught the light as he moved. 4 arms worked quickly, setting up the day's lesson plans. Today was special. Today, he would meet the 12 best military minds from across the galaxy. The crystalline professor had taught at the Prison Academy for over 300 years. He had seen thousands of students come and go. But this class was different. These 12 students had been chosen from millions. They would learn the most secret military tactics in known space. Thander looked at his tablet. 12 names glowed on the screen, 12 of the smartest beings in the galaxy. The first student walked in. Naya was from the Valtherian homeworld. Her smooth grey skin had small lights under it that blinked when she was nervous. Right now, those lights were blinking fast. She found her seat in the second row and sat down carefully. Next came Kale. The big Gorvani student had to duck under the doorway. His thick green skin looked like tree bark. A breathing mask covered half his face. His homeworld had different air, so he needed the mask to survive. Kale's heavy boots made the floor shake as he walked to his seat. Vex clicked into the room next. The Zephyrian looked like a giant insect walking on 2 legs. His 4 arms moved as he walked. Sharp mandibles clicked together as he looked around. The room, his large black eyes took in everything at once. More students came in. There was Roku from the ice world of Therma. His white fur was thick and soft. Myra from the desert planet Sala had bright orange skin that seemed to glow. Each student was the best their world could offer. Professor Thander watched them sit down. Something was wrong. He counted the seats. 13, but he only had 12 names on his list. The extra seat was right in the middle of the room. It had no nameplate, no number, but it looked old as the room itself. Strange, said to himself. I have taught in this room for 60 years. I never noticed that seat before. He looked at his tablet again. 12 names, 12 students, but 13 seats. The door opened again. Thander looked up, ready to tell the late student they were in the wrong room, but when he saw who walked in, he stopped. A human female stepped through the door. She was not tall or short, not big or small. She had black hair pulled back in a simple style. Her skin was light brown. She wore the same grey uniform as all the other students. But humans were not supposed to be in this class. The human walked past the other students. She did not look left or right. She did not seem nervous like Naya or excited like some of the others. She walked straight to the 13th seat and sat down. Professor Thander stared. The other students stared too. Naya's lights under her skin blinked faster. Kale's breathing mask made a soft hissing sound. Vex's mandibles clicked quietly. Excuse me, Professor Thander said. His voice was calm, but inside he felt confused. I do not see your name on my list. The human looked up at him. Her eyes were dark brown and very calm. My name is Hannah, she said. Hannah, Professor Thander repeated. This class is by invitation only. Only the best students from each world are chosen. I do not remember inviting any humans this year, Hannah nodded. That is correct. No humans were invited this year. Then why are you here? Because my seat was reserved. Professor Thander looked at the seat she sat in. It looked exactly like all the other seats. Old metal and worn fabric. But something about it seemed different. Reserved, he asked. Reserved by whom? Check the building plans, Hannah said. The original plans from when this room was built. The other students were listening now. Naya leaned forward in her seat. Kale turned his big head to look at Hannah. Even Vex stopped clicking his mandibles. The original plans, Professor Thander felt more confused. This room was built over 200 years ago. Yes, Hannah said. It was, Professor Thander thought. About this, humans had only joined the Galactic Union 30 years ago. Before that, they lived on their small world and knew nothing about space travel. How could they have reserved a seat 200 years ago? I think there has been a mistake, he said. No mistake, Hannah replied. She opened a tablet and began reading something on the screen. Should we begin class? I am ready to learn. The professor looked around the room. All the students were watching him. They wanted to know what he would do. He was the teacher. He had to decide. Very well, he said at last. But I will check those building plans after class. He began the lesson. Welcome to Advanced Strategic Warfare, he said to the 13 students. You are here because you are the best. Your worlds chose you from millions. As he talked, Professor Thando watched Hannah. She took notes like the other students. She asked good questions. She seemed to know things that surprised him. When he talked about the Battle of Carrax, Hannah asked about supply line problems that the history books did not mention. When he described Zephyrian flight tactics, she suggested improvements that made Vex's mandibles click with interest. How do you know these things? Professor Thanda asked her. I studied before coming here, Hannah said simply. During the break, the other students gathered around Naya's desk. They spoke in low voices and kept looking at Hannah. Who is she? Roku whispered. His white fur stood up when he was worried. I have never heard of humans being good at military tactics, Myra said. Her orange skin grew darker when she was confused. Maybe she is not really a student, Kale said through his breathing mask. Maybe she is a spy. Naya's lights blinked fast under her skin. But why would human spies come here? Humans are new to space. They know nothing about galactic warfare. Vex clicked his mandibles. She knew things about my people's flight tactics. Things that are not in public records. They all looked at Hannah. She sat in her seat, reading her tablet. She seemed calm and peaceful. She did not look like a spy. When class ended, Professor Thanda watched the students leave. Hannah was the last to go. She stood up, put her tablet in her bag, and walked to the door. Hannah, the professor called. She stopped and turned around. How long have humans been studying galactic military tactics? He asked. Hannah smiled. It was a small, quiet smile. Longer than you might think, Professor. She walked out, leaving Professor Thanda alone in the room with 13 seats and too many questions. He looked at the empty seat where Hannah had been sitting. It really did look old. As old as the room itself. Impossible, he said to the empty room. But as he gathered his things to leave, Professor Thanda made a decision. He would check those building plans. He would find out the truth about the 13th seat. And maybe, he would find out the truth about Hannah. Professor Thanda could not stop thinking about the 13th seat. During lunch, he walked to the Academy's main archive building. His 4 crystal arms moved quickly as he worked on his tablet. He needed to find the original building plans. For Lecture Hall 7. The archive building was old and quiet. Dust covered some of the older computers. Professor Thanda had been here many times before, but today felt different. Today, he was looking for answers to impossible questions. Can I help you, Professor? Asked the archive keeper. Her name was Zara. She was a small thermalian with thick blue fur and 6 arms. She had worked in the archives for over 100 years. I need the original building plans for Lecture Hall 7, Professor Thanda said. From when it was first built, Zara's 6 arms moved over her keyboard. That would be 137 years ago. Very old records. May I ask why? There is a seat in my classroom that should not be there. Zara looked at him with her large silver eyes. A seat that should not be there. I have 12 students. But there are 13 seats. The extra seat looks as old as the room itself. Zara nodded slowly. Old buildings sometimes have mysteries. Let me find those plans for you. While Professor Thanda waited, footsteps echoed. In the archive hall, Naya and Kale walked in together. The Veltharian's skin lights were blinking slowly, which meant she was thinking hard. The big Gorvani had to bend his head to fit under the ceiling. Professor Thanda Naya said, We came to help you look for information about the seat. And about the human, Kale added through his breathing mask. Something is not right about her. The professor looked at his students. They were curious. Just like him, very well, but we must be careful. We do not want to accuse someone without proof. Zara returned with a very old datapad. Here are the original plans. They are in old galactic script, so they might be hard to read. Professor Thunder took the datapad. His crystal fingers moved over the screen. The plans were old and faded, but he could see the layout of Lecture Hall 7. Impossible, he whispered. Naia moved closer. Her skin lights blinked faster. What is it? Look. Professor Thunder turned the screen so they could see. 13 seats. The plans clearly show 13 seats. Kale made a low rumbling sound. On his world, that meant surprise. But how can that be? Humans were not part of the galaxy then. Professor Thunder pointed to small writing next to the 13th seat. The letters were very old and hard to read. There is a note here. In the oldest form of administrative language, he read the words slowly. Reserved pending species, qualification. Sol 3 representative. Naya's skin lights stopped blinking. Sol 3 is the galactic name for Earth. Yes, Professor Thunder said. But this plan is from 237 years ago. Humans did not even have spaceships then. Kale sat down heavily in a chair. The chair made a creaking sound under his weight. This makes no sense. How could someone reserve a seat for a species that did not exist in space yet? Zara had been listening quietly. Now she spoke up. There might be more information in the construction records. Who ordered the room to be built this way? She worked on her computer. Again, after a few minutes, she found something. The construction order came from the Academy's board of directors. But there is something strange. The order to include the 13th seat came from something called the Sol 3 Advisory Protocol. Advisory Protocol, Professor Thunder repeated. What is that? I do not know. But it appears in other records too. Many times over the years, while they talked in the archives, Hannah walked through the academy halls. She moved like she knew exactly where she was going. She did not look at the signs on the walls. She did not stop to ask for directions. Vex followed her from a distance. His insect-like body could move very quietly when he wanted. He watched Hannah turn left down a hall, then right, then left again. She was going to the old section of the academy. The part that was built first. Hannah stopped at a door marked Restricted Faculty Only. She looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then she pressed her hand against the scanner next to the door. The door opened. Vex's mandibles clicked. In surprise, how did a human student have access to restricted areas? He followed her inside. The room was full of old computers and data storage units. Hannah walked to one of the computers and turned it on. She typed quickly, like she knew exactly what she was looking for. On the screen, Vex could see files about galactic military history, battle plans, strategic reports, information that should only be available to senior military officers. Hannah read through the files quickly. Sometimes she stopped to take notes on her tablet. She seemed to understand everything she was reading, even the most complex tactical information. Vex tried to move closer to see better, but his foot hit a piece of metal on the floor. The sound echoed in the quiet room. Hannah turned around quickly. Her calm brown eyes looked right at Vex. "You can come out," she said. "I know you are there." Vex stepped into the light. His forearms moved nervously. "How did you get in here?" "This room is restricted." "I have clearance," Hannah said simply. "What kind of clearance?" "You are a student, a new student." Hannah closed the computer files and turned to face him. "What do you know about human military history, Vex?" The question surprised him. "Not much. Humans are new to space. You fought some small wars on your home planet, but nothing important." "What if I told you that was not the whole truth?" Vex's mandibles clicked faster. "What do you mean? What if I told you that humans have been studying galactic warfare for much longer than 30 years? That is impossible. Humans did not even know about other species until first contact." Hannah smiled, that same quiet smile from yesterday. First official contact. Back in the archives, Professor Thunder was making more discoveries. Zara had found dozens of references to the Sol-3 Advisory Protocol throughout the Academy's history. "Look at this," Professor Thander said to Naya and Kale. The protocol gave advice on military strategy changes, new training methods, even suggestions for which students to accept into programs. Naya read over his shoulder. These suggestions go back over 2 centuries, but they all seem to be very good advice. The Academy followed most of these and every time they did, the Academy's military training got better. Kale added. Professor Thunder scrolled through more files. Here is something from 50 years ago. The protocol suggested new defensive strategies for dealing with Gorvani. Battle tactics, Kale's breathing mask hissed. Those strategies are still used today. They are very effective against my people's traditional fighting methods. But how could an advisory protocol from Sol-3 know about Gorvani tactics? Naya asked. If humans were not even in space yet. The 3 of them looked at each other. The same thought was in all their minds, but none of them wanted to say it out loud. Finally, Professor Thander spoke. What if humans were in space? What if they were watching us all this time? That evening, all the students gathered in the common area of their dormitory. Hannah sat by herself, reading something on her tablet. The other students sat together in a group, talking quietly. She knew things about Zephyrian flight tactics, Vex said. Things that are not in public records. And she has access to restricted areas, he added. Roku's white fur stood up. Maybe she is not really a student at all. Myra's orange skin was darker than usual. But what is she then? Naya looked across the room at Hannah. I think we should ask her directly. Kale made his rumbling sound again. What if she lies? Then we will know she is hiding something, Naya said. They all agreed. Naya stood up and walked across the room to where Hannah was sitting. Hannah, she said, we need to talk. Hannah looked up from her tablet. On the screen, Naya could see what looked like battle plans. Complex diagrams showing ship movements and attack patterns. What would you like to talk about? Hannah asked. Who are you really? Naya said. And do not say you are just a student. We know that is not true. Hannah looked at all the other students watching her. Then she looked back at Naya. You are right, she said calmly. I am not just a student. The room became very quiet. Everyone waited for her to continue. But I am not what you think I am either. Hannah said. The truth is much more complicated than that. She closed her tablet and stood up. And the truth about humanity is much more complicated than what you have been told. The next morning, Professor Thander decided to test Hannah in a different way. He had spent all night thinking about what they had found in the archives. The Sol-3 Advisory Protocol, the reserved seat, Hannah's strange knowledge. Today, we will run a battle simulation, he announced to the class. You will work in teams to command fleets in historical battles. The students looked excited. Battle simulations were the best part of the course. They could test their ideas against real military scenarios. The simulation today is the Battle of Kerix Minor, Professor Thander continued. 200 years ago, a small crystalline fleet defeated a much larger Gorvani invasion force. It is considered one of the greatest tactical victories in galactic history. Kale shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The Battle of Kerix Minor was not a happy memory for the Gorvani people. I will divide you into 3 teams, Professor Thander said. Each team will command the crystalline fleet and try to win the battle. He looked directly at Hannah. Hannah, you will command the first team. Hannah nodded calmly. Which ships do I have? Professor Thander activated the holographic display in the center of the room. A 3-dimensional star map appeared, showing the system. Small blue dots represented the crystalline fleet. Red dots showed the much larger Gorvani force. 12 crystalline cruisers, 4 support ships. Against 30 Gorvani battleships and 20 fighters, the other students looked at the display. The Gorvani fleet was huge compared to the crystalline force. In the real battle, the crystalline commander had used the asteroid belt to hide his ships and strike at the Gorvani flanks. You have 1 hour to study the battlefield, Professor Thander said. Then we begin. While the other teams worked together, planning their strategies, Hannah sat alone. She looked at the holographic display for a few minutes. Then she closed her eyes and seemed to think deeply. Naya watched her from across the room. "She is not even taking notes," she whispered to Vex. "Maybe she already knows how the battle was won." Vex clicked back. After an hour, Professor Thander started the simulation. "Team 1, Hannah, you may begin your attack." The holographic display changed. Now it showed the battle in real time. Hannah stood up and walked to the control panel. "Move the cruiser group to position 77 Alpha," she said. "Support ships to position 12 Beta." Professor Thander input her commands. The blue dots moved on the display. "That is not how the battle was fought," Roku whispered. "She is moving away from the asteroid belt." The other students watched as Hannah gave more orders. Her fleet moved in patterns that no one expected. Instead of hiding behind asteroids like the real crystalline commander had done, she moved her ships into open space. "This is wrong," Kale said. "The Gorvani will destroy her fleet." But something strange happened. As the simulation continued, Hannah's tactics began to work. Her ships moved in formations that confused the Gorvani AI. They attacked in ways that the enemy could not predict. "Impossible," Professor Thander said. "The Gorvani fleet is falling back." On the display, the red dots were retreating. Hannah's small blue fleet had somehow turned the battle around. "How is she doing this?" Mira asked. Her orange skin was bright with excitement. Hannah gave one final command. "All ships, execute formation Delta9." The blue dots moved into a pattern that looked like a flower opening. The Gorvani fleet was suddenly surrounded. Simulation complete, the computer announced. Crystalline victory. Enemy fleet destroyed with minimal losses. The room was silent. Everyone stared at the display. Hannah had not just won the battle, she had won it better than the real crystalline commander had 200 years ago. Professor Thander looked at the tactical analysis. "According to this, your strategy was 30% more efficient than the historical battle. You saved more ships and destroyed the enemy faster." "How did you know those formations would work?" Vex asked. His mandibles clicked rapidly. Hannah returned to her seat. "I studied Gorvani fleet tactics. But those formations you used," Kale said slowly. "I have never seen them before, and I know all the traditional crystalline battle strategies." "They are not traditional crystalline formations," Hannah said. "Then where did they come from?" Professor Thander asked. Hannah looked around the room at all the watching faces. "They came from human tactical analysis." The silence in the room grew deeper. "But humans did not exist in galactic space 200 years ago," Naya said. "How could you have tactics from that time?" "Who says we did not exist in galactic space?" Hannah asked quietly. During the lunch break, Professor Thander called Naya and Vex to his office. He had been doing more research in the Academy archives. "Found something disturbing," he said. He showed them his tablet. "Look at this tactical report from the real Battle of Kerex Minor." The report was written by the crystalline commander who had won the battle. At the bottom, there was a small note. "Strategy. Developed with assistance from HFY Advisory Protocol," Naya read out loud. "The protocol helped plan the real battle too." Vex clicked. Professor Thander scrolled to another file. "And this one. The defense of Vorthok Prime, 150 years ago." He pointed to the bottom of the report. HFY Advisory Protocol. Consultation. He showed them more files. The Battle of the Twin Suns. The Siege of Gorvani Station. The Zephyrian Border War. All of them had the same note. "The protocol has been giving military advice for over 2 centuries, Professor Thander said. And according to these records, every battle where the protocol was consulted ended in victory." "But that means," Naya said, her skin lights blinking. "Very fast, humans have been influencing galactic warfare for centuries." That afternoon, Vex decided to follow Hannah again. She went to the same restricted room as before. This time, Vex was ready. He had brought a small recording device. When Hannah opened the computer files, Vex could see more clearly. She was reading reports about current military situations. Not historical battles, but things that were happening right now. Fleet movements in the Outer Rim, she said to herself as she read. Crystalline patrol schedules. Gorvani supply routes. She made notes on her tablet. Then she opened a communication channel. This is Observer 7, she said into the communicator. Daily report. A voice answered. It sounded human, but Vex could not hear it clearly. Confirmed, Hannah continued. Academy students are responding well to advanced tactical training. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2. Phase 2. Vex's mandibles clicked silently. What was Phase 2? Negative, Hannah said to the voice. No security concerns. Local investigation remains at academic level. She closed the communication and turned off the computer. As she stood to leave, she spoke without turning around. You can stop hiding now, Vex. I know you are there again. Vex stepped out from behind the storage units. Observer 7. Hannah turned to face him. Her calm expression had changed. Now she looked more serious, more focused. That is my operational designation, she said. Operational? You mean military, in a way. Vex held up his recording device. I recorded what you said. About Phase 2, about the investigation. Hannah nodded. Good, that will save me time explaining to the others. The others, your classmates, Professor Shanador. They will want to know the truth, soon. She walked toward the door, then stopped. But first, you should know something important, Vex. Everything you think you know about human first contact with the galaxy, it is not true. What do you mean? I mean humans have been part of galactic civilization much longer than 30 years. We just have not been official members. Vex felt confused. How long? Hannah opened the door. Long enough to help win every major battle in galactic history for the past 200 years. She left the room, leaving Vex alone with his recording device and too many questions. That evening, the students gathered in the common area again. But this time, it was different. Vex had shared his recording with the others. Now they all knew that Hannah was not just a strange student. She was something else entirely. When Hannah entered the common area, all conversation stopped. 12 pairs of alien eyes watched her as she walked to an empty chair and sat down. I suppose. You have questions, she said calmly. Many questions, Professor Thander said. He had joined the students after Vex had shown him the recording. Hannah nodded. Then I suppose it is time for some answers. She looked around the room at all the faces watching her. But I warn you, the truth about humanity and the galaxy is not what any of you expect. Hannah looked around the room at all the worried faces. Professor Thander sat forward in his chair. Naya's skin lights were blinking very fast. Kale's breathing mask made nervous hissing sounds. All the students waited for her to speak. The truth is simple, Hannah began. Everything you know about human first contact with the galaxy is wrong. What do you mean wrong? Professor Thander asked. I mean it never happened. Not the way the history books say. Hannah stood up and walked to the large window. Outside, the stars of Vorthok Prime's night sky shone brightly. 30 years ago, humans did not discover galactic civilization, she said. 30 years ago, humans decided to stop hiding. The room was completely silent. Hiding? Roku asked. His white fur was standing up. Hiding from what? Not from what? From whom? We were hiding from all of you. Hannah turned back to face the group. Humans have known about galactic civilization for over 300 years. We have been watching you, learning about you, studying your military tactics, your politics, your cultures. Vex's mandibles clicked loudly. That is impossible. Our sensors would have detected human ships, would they? Hannah asked. Are you sure about that? She activated her tablet and projected a hologram into the center of the room. It showed a star map of the galaxy. This is what your sensors see when they look at human space, she said. The hologram showed Earth and a few nearby colonies. Small, simple, new dot, then the image changed. This is what human space really looks like. The new hologram showed hundreds of human worlds. Ships moving between star systems, Massive space stations. A civilization that was clearly much older and more advanced than anyone had thought. Kale made his rumbling sound. How is this possible? Stealth technology, Hannah said simply. We developed it long before we made official contact. Your sensors see only what we want them to see. Professor Thander stood up. His crystal arms were shaking. You have been lying to us for 30 years. Not lying. Protecting. Protecting what? Both sides, you from us, and us from you. Hannah changed the hologram again. Now it showed a timeline of galactic history. 300 years ago, human exploration ships found evidence of galactic civilization. We realized we were not alone. But we also realized something else. She pointed to markers on the timeline showing wars, conflicts, and destroyed civilizations. The galaxy was dangerous. Very dangerous. Species that joined the galactic community too early, without proper preparation, often ended up conquered or destroyed. Naya leaned forward. So you decided to study us first? We decided to understand what we were joining before we revealed ourselves. The hologram changed to show the Sol-3 Advisory Protocol network. Lines connected Earth to dozens of points throughout the galaxy. We placed observers everywhere. Military academies, government buildings, trade centers, research stations. They watched, learned, and reported back to Earth. The advisory protocol, Professor Thander said, yes, our observers would give advice and suggestions. Always helpful, always making the galaxy a little bit safer, a little bit better, but never revealing who they really were. Myra's orange. Skin was very dark. You manipulated us. We guided you, Hannah corrected. Every suggestion we made was designed to help galactic civilization become more peaceful, more cooperative. We wanted to join a galaxy where different species could work together safely. She showed them more holograms, battle plans, diplomatic agreements, trade treaties, all influenced by human observers over the centuries. The Battle of Corex Minor that we simulated yesterday. The real crystalline commander received tactical advice from Observer 15. The defense of Vorthok Prime. Observer 3 helped plan the defensive strategy. How many observers do you have? Vex asked. Enough. In every major government, every military academy, every research facility. We have been part of galactic civilization for centuries. You just did not know it. Professor Thander sat down heavily. The improvement in military cooperation over the past 2 centuries, the reduction in major wars, the better trade agreements, all influenced by human observers giving good advice, Hannah confirmed. Roku's white fur was still standing up. But why? Why go to all this trouble? Hannah's expression became more serious. Because we learned something important when we first discovered the galaxy. We learned that species who join galactic civilization without understanding it first usually make one of 2 mistakes. What mistakes? Naya asked. They either try to conquer everyone else, or they get conquered by someone else. We wanted to avoid both. She activated her tablet again. This time it showed information about Earth's real military capabilities. By the time we made official first contact 30 years ago, we had already spent centuries learning galactic military tactics. We knew how to fight every major species. We knew their weaknesses, their strategies, their technologies. The hologram showed human ships that looked nothing like the simple vessels in the official records. These ships were sleek, advanced, and clearly very dangerous. We could have conquered the entire galaxy if we wanted to, Hannah said quietly. But conquest was never our goal. Then what was your goal? Professor Thander asked. Partnership. Real partnership. We wanted to join the galactic community as equals, not as conquerors or victims. She changed the hologram to show diplomatic meetings from 30 years ago. When we finally revealed ourselves officially, we made sure the galaxy was ready for us. We had already helped make it more peaceful, more cooperative, more welcoming to new species. Kale's breathing mask hissed. You planned everything. We planned for success. For everyone's success. Vex clicked his mandibles. But you are still watching us, still influencing things. Yes, Hannah admitted. But now you know about it. Why tell us now? Naya asked. You could have kept the secret forever. Hannah sat back down. Because the observation phase is ending, humanity is ready to take a more active role in galactic affairs. But we want to do it with transparency. What do you mean, more active? Professor Thander asked. This academy trains the galaxy's future military leaders. In 10 years, all of you will hold important positions in your governments and militaries. You needed to know what humanity really brings to the galaxy before that happens. She looked around the room at each student. You needed to understand that when humans offer military advice, we are not guessing. We have been studying galactic warfare for centuries. When we suggest diplomatic solutions, we are not being naive. We have been watching galactic politics longer than most of your governments have existed. The room was quiet for a long time. Everyone was thinking about what they had learned. Finally, Roku spoke. Are there other human students like you? In other academies, Hannah smiled. 12 others. In the most important military and diplomatic schools across the galaxy, all sitting in seats that were reserved centuries ago. Vex asked. All sitting in seats that were reserved centuries ago. Professor Thander looked at her carefully. What happens now? Now we continue your education. But with full knowledge of what humanity can offer as a partner. You will learn military tactics that combine the best of human strategy with galactic wisdom. You will understand diplomatic approaches that we have been testing for centuries. She stood up again. And when you graduate, you will help lead a galaxy that is stronger, safer, and more united than ever before. Naya's skin lights had stopped blinking. You really believe we can all work together? We have been working together for centuries, Hannah said. You just did not know it, now you do. She walked toward the door. Classes continue tomorrow. But now you know the truth about your human classmate. She paused at the door. And the truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. The next morning, everything felt different. When the students walked into Lecture Hall 7, they all looked at the 13th seat in a new way. It was no longer mysterious. Now it was a symbol of something much bigger. Professor Chanidor stood at the front of the classroom. He had spent all night thinking about what Hannah had told them. His crystal arms moved slowly as he prepared the day's lesson. Today, we will do something different, he announced. Today, we will create new military strategies. Not based on old battles, but on new possibilities. Hannah sat in her seat, looking calm as always. But now the other students understood why she was so calm. She had been trained for this moment her entire life. Professor Naya said, her skin lights blinking slowly. How do we know what we learned yesterday is really true? It was a good question. Everything they thought they knew about the galaxy had changed in one evening. Professor Thander activated his tablet. I spent the night checking historical records. Not just academy files, but government archives and military databases. He projected a hologram showing decades of military reports. Every major strategic improvement in the past 2 centuries can be traced back to the Sol 3 Advisory Protocol. Every successful diplomatic solution, every advancement in military cooperation between species, Kale made his rumbling sound. So humans really have been helping us all this time. More than helping, Professor Thander said. They have been guiding galactic civilization toward becoming something better. Vex clicked his mandibles. But why should we trust them now? They lied to us for centuries. Hannah spoke for the first time that morning. We did not lie. We simply did not tell you the whole truth until you were ready to hear it. Ready? Roku asked. What makes us ready now? You are about to become leaders, Hannah explained. In a few years, you will hold important positions in your militaries and governments. You needed to understand what humanity can really offer before you take those positions. Professor Thander nodded. She is right. This academy trains future leaders. If we are going to work together in the future, we need to understand each other completely. Myra's orange skin was brighter than usual. So what happens now? Do humans take control of the galaxy? No, Hannah said firmly. Humans do not want to control the galaxy. We want to be partners in making it better. She stood up and walked to the holographic display. Let me show you what real partnership looks like. The hologram changed to show a new kind of military formation. Ships from different species worked together in ways that none of them had seen before. This is a combined fleet strategy, Hannah explained. It uses the speed of Zephyrian fighters, the strength of Gorvani battleships, the precision of crystalline cruisers, and the stealth of human vessels. The formation moved through a simulated battle. Each species did what they did best, while the others covered their weaknesses. Impossible, Vex said. Zephyrian fighters cannot work with Gorvani battleships. Our fighting styles are too different. They are different, Hannah agreed. But different does not mean incompatible. Watch. She ran the simulation again. This time she showed how Zephyrian speed could protect slow Gorvani ships, while Gorvani firepower could support fast Zephyrian attacks. We have been studying all of your military capabilities for centuries, Hannah said. We know how they can work. Together, Professor Thander was fascinated. These tactics could revolutionize galactic defense. That is the idea, Hannah said. Humans do not want to replace your military traditions. We want to help them work together better. Over the next several hours, Hannah showed them strategy after strategy. Each one combined the best aspects of different species' military capabilities. The students began to see possibilities they had never imagined. This changes everything, Naya said during a break. If we can really coordinate our militaries this way, no enemy could stand against us. What enemies? Roku asked. The galaxy is mostly peaceful now. Hannah and Professor Thander exchanged glances. The galaxy is peaceful within known space, Professor Thander said carefully. But there are regions beyond our borders that we know very little about. Dangerous regions, Hannah added. Humans have been exploring beyond known space for many years. We have found evidence of civilizations that are not as peaceful as ours. The room became very quiet. Are you saying there are threats out there? Kale asked. We are saying it is always better to be prepared, Hannah replied. That is why humans have been working to make galactic civilizations stronger and more united. Vex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You have been preparing us for something. We have been preparing ourselves and you for anything, Hannah corrected. The universe is a big place. We do not know what we might encounter as we explore further. Professor Thander activated another hologram. This one showed the edge of known space. Human exploration ships have found evidence of at least 3 major civilizations beyond our borders. We do not know if they are friendly or hostile, but we know they are much larger than any single species in our galaxy. Which is why cooperation is so important, Hannah said. Alone, any one of our species would be vulnerable. Together, we are strong enough to handle anything. The afternoon was spent working on practical applications of the new strategies. Students from different species worked together in ways they never had before. Naya and Kale discovered that Veltharian communication technology could perfectly coordinate with Gorvani heavy weapons. Vex and Roku found that Zephyrian mobility, combined with Thermelian cold weather tactics, created powerful new fighting methods. This is amazing, Mira said. Why did we never try this before? Because you never had someone who understood all of your capabilities, Hannah explained. Humans have been studying each species for centuries. We know your strengths and weaknesses better than you know them yourselves. That seems unfair, Roku said. It would be unfair if we used that knowledge against you, Hannah replied. But we are using it to help you become stronger. As the day ended, Professor Thander had the students work on one final exercise. They had to design a defense strategy for the entire galaxy, using all the new cooperative tactics they had learned. Remember, he said, you are not just representing your own species anymore. You are planning for everyone. The students worked together in a way that surprised them all. Ideas flowed freely between species that had never cooperated before. Strategies emerged that were more creative and effective than anything they could have developed alone. When they finished, The holographic display showed a galactic defense network unlike anything in known history. Every species contributed their best capabilities. Every weakness was covered by another species' strength. Remarkable, Professor Thander said. This defense system would make our galaxy nearly impossible to conquer. More importantly, Hannah added, it would make invasion unnecessary. This system is so strong that most potential enemies would choose diplomacy instead of war. Naya looked around the room at her classmates. We really can work together. You always could, Hannah said. You just needed to see how. As the students prepared to leave, Vex had one more question. What happens to you now? Do you stay here as a student? Or do you go back to being an observer? Hannah smiled. I stay here as a student. But I am also something new. I am a bridge between humanity and the rest of the galaxy, the first of many. Many? Kale asked. The age of secret observation is ending, Hannah explained. The age of open partnership is beginning. There will be human advisors working openly, with governments and militaries across the galaxy. She looked at each of her classmates. And there will be alien students at human academies, learning our strategies, just as you have learned yours. Professor Thander gathered his materials. Class dismissed. But I want you to think about what you have learned today. You are no longer just students from different worlds. You are partners in building the future of the galaxy. As the students left the lecture hall, they walked differently than they had that morning. They stood straighter. They talked to each other more easily. They had become something new. Outside the academy, the stars of Vorthok Prime were beginning to appear in the evening sky. But now those stars did not seem so distant. They seemed like destinations, places where the new partnership between species would grow and flourish. Hannah was the last to leave the classroom. She looked back at the 13 seats, especially her own in the center. For centuries, that seat had been reserved for this moment. For the day when humanity would step out of the shadows and join the galaxy. As equal partners. Now that day had come, and the galaxy would never be the same.